Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About Podcast. And today we're talking about real estate investing and more lifestyle changes and getting to the ideal life you want to lead with Mike Wolf. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because your life journey has been very interesting. I know when we've chatted before around how you started out expecting to be a lawyer and realizing that wasn't your dream, it was your mum's dream, and a bit of tough love there to say, actually, I want to move into the real estate investing. And that meant you were more of a workaholic. And then, okay, how do we transition that back to how do you move that to your ideal lifestyle? And now you're in a fabulous place of self-titled homeless millionaire, which I think is awesome because you can now give back to charity, spend time with your kids and your grandkids, and also help animals in various places, including Costa Rica. So yeah, we'd love to dig down into that, Mike, and understand how you shifted your mindset around that from being a workaholic to building your ideal lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think everybody's parents do this, and society and the media does this too. They teach us that, we have to go and work hard. And that's the secret to success. You go work hard. And if you need more money, work harder.
Put in the effort.
And you trade more time for money. And I think that when we teach people that, we're actually doing a really big disservice to them, because working hard in my travels, when if I go to Mexico and I see that person lugging all these hats and towels that they sell one at a time on the beach in like 30 degrees Celsius weather, they're working hard, but I think they can work a lot more efficiently. And to me, it's about working smart. So it took me a long time to figure out how to do that. I did what my parents told me. I got a good education, eventually discovered real estate, which made me extremely busy, but I loved what I was doing. I was very passionate about it. So it never really felt like work. But when I started doing this, I was like 23 years old. And as time went on, next thing you know, you're married, you have kids. Wives don't always appreciate that you're working 12, 14-hour days, even though you say it's, hey, so we can have a better life. They don't appreciate it when you're not seeing your kids, when you're not going to the soccer practices. That's not good.
Yeah, life is passing you by, right?
Exactly. Well, I remember when my daughter was born, she's 28 now, but I remember when she was born, I literally didn't know how I was going to take like a week or two away from my business without it falling apart so I could spend time at home. If you contrast that, now I have two grandkids. The older one is 7. And when he was born, I could have stayed there as long as I wanted to hang out because I had the money still coming in, but I didn't have to trade my time for it anymore. And inspire people and show them the secret to having the lifestyle of your dreams isn't to work harder. When you see that person on the yacht, it's not because they work really hard. It's because they're working really efficiently. They're working smart. So to get there really requires, number one, and it's really tough for us entrepreneurs, but we have to give up control a little bit. We have to allow other people, we have to do the things that we shouldn't be doing, don't want to do, etc. We need to be able to delegate. And for most of us, it's a very difficult transition. Most of us start off, and I'm talking about entrepreneurs right now, most of us start off as solopreneurs and we do everything ourselves. And it's kind of like when you give birth to a baby, our business is our baby. And you're not going to arrange or hold that baby, right? And so we have a really hard time letting go. And so I think there's really 3 phases. The first phase is being a solopreneur, where you don't let anybody touch your baby. Eventually you get to that point where, like me, you can't take away any more hours out of your life because now you're already doing 14. And if you want to sleep and eat, there's no more hours to give. And so we reluctantly get to the next stage where we bring some people on board in our business. And I call that babysitting phase because, okay, we bring people on, but now we're micromanaging them to death, where we need to know every little thing they're doing 24/7. And then we get to the point, hopefully not all of us get there. We get to that point where we realize, hey, I'm spending just as many hours working, just I've changed. Instead of, in the case of a real estate investor, instead of going and collecting rent for my tenants, they're doing it, but now I'm managing the property manager and I'm still spending as many hours. I'm just doing a different job. And then we get to that realization that there are people that we can trust that can do what we do as well as we can, sometimes a lot better than we can. And we just have faith that they've got our back. And in order for them to have your back, you've got to have their back too and treat them well. And micromanaging is not treating them well. Then we can get to the freedom phase. And when you get to the freedom phase, that's where money starts coming in without you having to trade your time anymore. Ironically, the less I work, the more money I make, because that means I brought more people on my team. And I'm very fortunate to have my dream team. And then you get to the phase where you get to actually enjoy life, which is why we all get started and what we do in the first place. We want to eventually get freedom, get to the point where they have financial freedom, but they never get that time freedom and they don't get to enjoy it. So it's really important to automate, delegate, and get over those control issues that we all kind of have in our minds.
Yes. And I do want to zoom in a bit to that as well, because some of my audience are employed. There's a lot of self-employed entrepreneurs and also, but also employed. To your point around working hard, because that's with my upbringing in terms of just work really hard and then you get promoted, then you start having a team to look after, and then you get to various senior levels of leadership and directorship, VP, and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's still the same process because as an analyst, manager, developer, when you're still starting your career, you're working really hard. Then you try to delegate when you first get your team. And to your point, you end up micromanaging, you end up working harder because you feel you need to step in and do it. So getting to that third stage of freedom, be it an entrepreneur or an employee in a company, it's still the learning how to let go and automate as much as possible. And then, like you say, get back the freedom so you can lead rather than just manage. Does that make sense to you?
It makes total sense. And, for a lot of us, we have just trouble getting past that first phase, just where we entrust other people. And to your point, when you have a team, sometimes we think, oh, I could have done that way better. Well, we don't give them a chance. When you first start at your job, I'm sure you're
Yes.
nowhere near as qualified as you are today at what you do. And it just takes time. And so the best thing to do is to give them time. I mean, obviously, when you hire them, you have to make sure that they have the right mindset and the right
Mm,
attitude, etc. But don't expect that they're going to duplicate you the first day on the job. You have to also realize that just because you do it a certain way doesn't mean that's the only way to achieve a result. And somebody might do it a different way. And I've learned over the years, a lot of times the people that have been on my teams get to the result quicker because their systems were better than my systems. I was just, quite often we're the boss and our ego says, oh, well, they've got to do it this
yeah.
way. This is how I do it.
I've built this. Yes.
Exactly. So sometimes when you let them have some freedom, they come up with things that are way better than what you were doing. And
Mm.
I give my teams a lot of leeway, and we have a very well-oiled machine, and people are very happy being in my organization. I'm very happy because I've got the lifestyle that I do because I gave up that control. So I think it's so
And
important.
and just to build on that as well, I mean, that's the power of having specialists on your team, because as a leader, we cannot be specialists. We can be experienced, we're experts. We can't be specialists in every aspect of our business or our team or working environment. So bring in specialists, like you say, who can often do it way better than you because that's all they do.
That's all
They
I do.
just focus on that. And that was a big eye opener for me when I know you've read the 4 Hour Work Week, and I read it several years ago. And I don't know about you, but I went into it thinking, okay, great, I'm going to read this book and only work 4 hours a week and and done. I'm curious to know your takeaway from it. My key takeaway from the 4 Hour Work Week was around you have to earn that 4 hours. You can't just suddenly not work
Right.
the 36 hours. Still have to do the 4 hours. You still have to get to that point. So it's specializing in something and then automating it, running it through. And then by then you don't stop. You keep going anyway.
Right.
But yeah, but what about you? What do you take away from the 4 Hour Work Week?
Yeah, well, the first time I read the 4 Hour Work Week, and I've read it several times, and Timothy Ferriss is amazing. I was already living, not necessarily a 4 Hour Work Week, but I was already automated a bunch of processes. I was delegating a lot of stuff. And when I read it, it just confirmed, hey, I'm not that much of a weirdo. There's other people that are doing
Yes.
it
Yeah.
too, because nobody else I knew was really doing a lot of that. Not the people in my circles. I know there's people much more successful than me that weren't hanging out with me at that time that were doing really cool things, but I didn't have access to them. So when I read that book, it really just inspired me to continue even more on the delegation
Mm,
path. And so I started to bring on more and more people on my team, started to give up more and more of the control. And now I'm at the point where, my business is run extremely well without me. I have other
mm.
people, for example, my main assistant is in Frankfurt, Germany. I don't get her to report to me what she does. I don't need to know as long as we're getting the results. And so she oversees a team that we've got in the Philippines that does a lot of our marketing, for example. I
Mm.
never met any of these people in the Philippines. I haven't had a conversation on the phone with any of these people. They report to my assistant, and my assistant, I've given her the ability to hire people whenever she needs it without having to get approval from me.
Okay, so autonomy to make decisions as well.
Right. So when you
Yeah.
have people on your team that you trust, obviously, if you had some people that were going to take advantage of you, yes, then you wouldn't be getting the results because you see your expenses going way up, or you'd see that your revenues.
Mm,
But if you have the right people on your team and you treat them well so they love being there, they don't want to go anywhere else, because where else do you get to work somewhere from home where you don't have to report what hours you worked? but as long as you get the job done, you get the job done. And so I just find it like back in the olden days, I would have had to definitely have a conversation with all the people she was hiring, let alone just let her pick them. And I would probably have fired people a lot sooner than she does, because she knows that, hey, I can work with these people to get them to a certain point, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And sometimes
Mm.
when you're really emotionally involved, you're the big boss, and you're emotionally involved, and you want to get that result like right away. You don't give people long enough, and then you end up actually costing yourself more money because you keep bringing people in, letting them go, bringing people in, letting them go. And if you just kept that first person and instead worked with them, and in my case, I'm very fortunate, like I said, because I've got other people that do the work with them, then you can get results a lot quicker without having to, once again, trade that time. And so a lot of us do get to that second phase, like I said, but we end up spending just as much time, sometimes more time, because now we start to get really emotional. It's like, I hired this person. I thought they were supposed to make my life easier. And now I'm spending so much time trying to train them and they don't catch on. We're just not giving them a chance. And I find the best people on your team are the ones that they come in with their own systems already. They're quite often better than your system.
Yeah, so we'll just offer a counterpoint on that as well, because yeah, it's a balance of, yeah, do you keep someone on and train them up and give them a chance versus do they have the ability to do it? And the analogy I always go back to is if they're a 4 or 5 out of 10 and you think you can get them to an 8 or 9, it's very difficult. If they're a 6 or 7 out of 10, then getting them up to the 8 or 9 is much easier.
Absolutely.
And that's not to say there aren't any 4 or 5s out of 10s that could get there, but you have to spend way more effort, in my experience, way more effort getting them up to that point. Whereas you're better off just saying, okay, this is not the right role for you, but give them a chance. You work through here's the performance plan, here's what we expect. And if they don't meet that quickly, though, it's making the change for them and you quickly. I do find it's sometimes a good way to go.
Well, I think these days also, unless you're creating something that's very proprietary, a position that's very unique, there's people already doing what you need effectively, and maybe they want it to be in a different work environment. They want to be in a different culture. And or maybe they were being micromanaged at their last job and they want to be somewhere where they have some freedom to use their skills. And I know that I would
Mm,
do very well if I went to an office every day and I felt like I was very qualified to do something, but somebody was saying, "Oh no, do it this way instead," or "You're not doing it good enough. You're not doing it my way." I would last like an hour, and I'd like probably walk out. So
yes.
when you have the right people and you let them use their skill sets and they feel like they're part of something much bigger, I've had such good luck once I started to give up that control and then bring on people that I trust to go and deal, like I said, with things like hiring and training, take myself out of the equation because you're too close to it. You're too emotional.
Mm,
And we don't always make the best choices because we're just like in a hurry to get to a certain destination in our business. And anyway, I could go on and on. And once I got to that freedom phase and I realized that this is only possible because I don't micromanage anymore, because I don't try to
mm,
control anything. Ironically, like I said, our numbers are way better than when I ever tried to control things. So
yeah.
my life is a lot better than when I try to control things. So for me, I wish I would have got to that point a lot earlier. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And that for me is going back to that 4 hour work week, as in trying to boil down that series of tasks or effort or job down to the 4 hours. Because I mean, whether you achieve exactly 4 hours doesn't really matter. It's the condensing it down to the most efficient way of delivering it with the right delegation, automation, and optimization that you can do. Then you're freeing up, because you're boiling that one down to 4 hours, you're freeing up your time to do other things. So what I took from 4 hour work week and what I do now is I find that I'm doing lots of 4 hour work week activities, which still means I have a very full life,
Yeah.
but I'm not suddenly just working 4 hours and that's it. Is that similar to you?
Well, for me, this is the entrepreneur in me is I can never, my brain doesn't have an off switch. So
Right.
financially,
Yes.
retiring would be no problem financially. Brain wise, like I said, it never stops thinking and coming up with ideas. So one of the things I've learned to do is that I'll only start something if I know I can pull myself back out of it really quickly. Like I don't want to make
Mm,
something where it's a 2 year commitment of working hard to get to a certain goal. And so quite often I'll look at something and say, nope, this is going to take up too much of my time. I'm not interested. And, so my brain doesn't stop. I keep coming up with ideas, but I only do the ones that number one, I love and that I'm very
mm,
passionate about. And number two, where it's not going to take away from my travel. I do a lot of volunteering. It won't take away from that. It won't take away from me hanging out with my daughter, my grandkids. So that's kind of where I draw the line, is how much of my time is going to require. And when you get to the point where you're financially free, you've got to at some point tell yourself, hey, you got to stay away from these ideas, even though they might be very lucrative. It's kind of a reflex for somebody like myself where it's like, oh, well, I got to build this. I'd be stupid not to build it. It's so easy. But next thing you know, you go down that rabbit hole and you've given up your time freedom again. And so sometimes I'll give my ideas to other people, let them run with it. But the other good thing is once you've been an entrepreneur for a while, you've got certain teams in place. So for example, if I started something new, I don't have to go build a new marketing team. I already have that. I don't need, sometimes I can just retool. I like to call it my assembly lines doing this business. I could just change one or two things and now it becomes a whole other business and it doesn't take my time. So I know not everybody who's listening to this is an entrepreneur. So if you're not, one of the things that I feel you need to do as an employee to get off that treadmill eventually is you need to start creating some sort of passive income. And passive income is basically making money while you're sleeping, while you're traveling, while you're volunteering, doing whatever it is that you love. And to me, the best way to do it is real estate. And so it's not what you see on TV, flip this, flip that. What it means is taking some of your money and buying some rental properties. You buy the rental property one time. By the way, you delegate and get somebody else to manage it. Don't manage it yourself, even if there's only one property, because that's a full-time job and a really bad job managing properties. So if you can do that, like look at during this last couple of years during COVID, if you had bought a rental property and you bought it the day before COVID started, chances are, depending on what market you're in, you'd be up 75, 100, $200,000 in equity for doing nothing on top of the rent that you've got. And so now you take that money and you redeploy that, you take some of the equity out, you buy another property, and that's how you build a portfolio. And over time, if you can have some long-term rentals, some short-term rentals, some medium-term rental properties, now that's your ticket away from going to the job every day, going back to the 9 to 5. And so, but a lot of people just think, oh, I'll work harder, I'll keep saving money. Well, yeah, that's great. But with inflation, that money, when you go to retirement, that money is sitting in a savings account. Look how quickly it gets eroded. I mean, we're seeing it right now. I live in hotels and I can see the price of hotels typically more than doubled and tripled depending on where you go over what it was just a couple years ago. It's crazy. And then the prices on menus at restaurants. I eat every meal in a restaurant pretty much because I travel full time. And the prices of them, like everything's going up. And so, yes, all this money that you saved that you thought was going to lead you to having a really happy, healthy retirement. No, you have to downgrade your lifestyle. So you got to buy something that keeps up or does better than inflation. Real estate is my favorite thing, but there's other ways to create passive income too. But that to me is the easiest way to do it.
I love real estate as well. Ever since my first manager, when I very first started my career, she said, always keep the house you live in and just rent it out. And that's an easy way to start is when you move house is just try renting it out, because if it's a single family home or an apartment, the chances are you'll learn a lot from that first rental. Whether you keep it longer term is another matter, but just starting out. And with our real estate journey, both in the UK and now Canada, like you say, you manage the tenant, agent or real estate property manager, and then pull out the equity. That's the key is build up the equity, which might take years to build up, but that then starts the flywheel of investing into the next one, and then or using that money for something else if you want to invest into another business. So I love that machine once it gets going, but it takes confidence, takes a mindset for sure.
It takes mindset, but once I've been doing this for 34 years. And so there's a great saying, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And so the good thing is I own quite a few properties, and during COVID, obviously they all went up in value considerably. The rent went up quite a bit with inflation. And so, if I had known 34 years ago, that was going to be what happens every X number of years. You don't have to wait, by the way, for a pandemic. In my 34 years, I've had many times where the markets have gone up and all of a sudden I was sitting on more equity, which I pulled out, use that to reinvest, buy more properties, get more rent. But it all started with one property. So I think the biggest misconception is, oh, well, I need to have millions of dollars to get started.
Yes, or buying a big multiplex or apartment block.
Yeah, every property I own today is because of that one property that I almost didn't buy 34 years ago because I almost talked myself because I was scared. So buy yourself one property, start small. Like I said, get somebody to manage it. And then when you get that equity or you've saved up enough from going to your job or doing whatever it is you do to make money, buy another one. Properties that you buy today will eventually, when you see people with very large portfolios of properties, most of them did not win the lottery. Most of them weren't born with money. They just bought one property. The market did its thing. And then they turned that into two properties. Those two properties, the market did its thing. They turned it into four properties and they kept building their portfolio. And because once again, if you have the right teams, and there's property managers that know what they're doing, by the way, so you don't have to go train them.
Yeah.
This isn't anything new. There's property managers that know what they're doing. You can get this money coming in passively. And eventually, for a lot of people I know, that real estate superseded what they made. They made more money with their real estate than they did going to their job 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. So, but you got to start somewhere. And I think the other really big misconception is that people think, well, even to get that first property, well, I got to save up a significant amount of money. So there's a whole bunch of ways to get properties with very little or even no money down, to be honest, that I did not know when I started 34 years ago, but this is stuff that I've learned over the years. So
Yeah,
just
you
get
can be
yourself,
creative as well. There's a lot of misconception around a
yeah.
formal, way to buy property, and you can be really, really creative. I'd even say being careful using private lending to get started, because then as long as you have a plan to repay it and have that plan, absolutely, then it enables you to get going, and that's where you're leveraging other people's money as well.
Well, I've picked up properties at real estate auctions, for example. And by the way, don't go to real estate auction unless you know what you're doing. But I've
Yeah,
actually picked up
right.
single family homes for a little bit over $7,000. So it wasn't the down payment, that was the actual purchase price of the property. So I have some of my students have bought properties literally with their credit cards. So, but there's also ways
Presumably
to
you need to, but it's not just quite as simple as that. Presumably you need some work on it. So there's a reason it's $7,000 though, right?
there's a reason, but it's not always that the home needs a ton of work. It's not
Mm,
always the case. Sometimes it's they haven't paid their property taxes in a number of years. Sometimes it's somebody inherited the property and they don't want it because to them it's just a headache. They don't know how to deal with it. They got this piece of real estate that to them is a liability, and to us it's an asset. So there's a lot of different ways. I actually have an ebook on some of the ways to get into real
mm.
estate with very little or no money, which I'm happy to share for free with your audience if that's good
Yeah,
with.
that'd be awesome.
Okay, so, but trust me when I tell you that there are ways to get started. If you have money, that's awesome. If you have lots of money and good credit, even better. But if you don't feel like you can't get in the game, because you absolutely can. And
Mm.
my first property, trust me, I wasn't swimming in money. I was a starving ex-university student that had student loans to pay off. And I happened to buy a property thanks to a mortgage broker who came to me and gave me some ideas, and he inspired me to buy my first rental property. Had it not been for him, I would not be where I am today. And so,
And that's a really important point actually, is don't feel, read, go on YouTube, learn, absolutely, but get involved in some of these real estate groups online, but actually talk to people as well, because then it opens up your mind to different ways of doing things, and even just mixing with real estate investors creates energy. I get a lot of energy. That's why I love these conversations with people like you, Mike, and others. Just say, okay, there is a possibility, there is other people doing this, and it's not that art or science that someone else does. Is like, we too can do this.
yeah, well, what's interesting is that I find that the most successful people, they want to share. They actually want to
Right.
inspire other people to do the same. Like when during COVID, I had a lot of my friends calling me up and go, Mike, my gym got shut down. What do I do? Mike, my restaurant got shut down. What do I do? Mike, I lost my job. And so a lot of people would come to me. Of course, I'm going to help them because to me, during COVID, I was seeing opportunities. And I don't mean to sound insensitive, but I was seeing opportunities. And I thought if these
Mm,
people knew what I knew, they wouldn't be worried. Okay, you lost your job. You've been complaining about that job for the last 10 years that you hate going to it every day. Well, now's the time to go and do something different. To me, it opened up
yes.
opportunities for people. You had this downtime where you could learn and read and go watch video, whatever it took to reinvent yourself. But a lot of people are very resistant to change. But in any case, sometimes we get blessings in disguise that we don't see as blessings at the time. So anyway, to make a long story short, I find the most successful people are more than happy to share with you. And that's why people come to
Yes.
me all the time. And I find that the people that are scarcity minded don't tend to get that successful. They're always worried that, oh, if I teach somebody, they're going to steal all the business away from me. I guarantee you that I'm not going to buy every home in Canada or the US, no matter how much money I've got in my bank account. There's going to be plenty
Mm,
of other homes for other investors to buy. And so I find the most, like I said, the most successful people are happy to share. And so a lot of times people don't want, they're scared to approach us because they think, oh, well, he's so successful, he's not going to talk to me. It's the opposite. Like I love inspiring people. That's why I'm here on this podcast. Like there's a lot of things I could be doing right now, but I'm here because I want to show people that there's other ways besides being that workaholic and besides trading your
yeah.
time for money. And there's a way to get off that treadmill. I don't want to see a whole bunch of people suffering while I'm living on some island by myself somewhere. That's really boring. So
Yes.
but anyway, so go out. If you know somebody who is doing something that you wish you were doing and or they're at a point in their life where you aspire to be to, reach out to them, ask them. Most of them will be happy to help you.
Yeah. And that's an important point, is around touch on the learning, like be curious, because a lot of people see success as a stage or a point, as in when I get to this point of monetary value or age or whatever, I'll be happy and I'm done. You know what I mean? It's I've suddenly achieved success and that's it for life. It's like, well, no, it's what I've learned, and I've worked a lot on this because I found it tough sometimes. Is it's continual learning and it's new problems, but what you find is you're dealing with new problems all the time, and that grows. That means you end up doing more by taking on these new challenges and you being curious, like you say, talking to other people who've done it more than you, then trying to apply it and learning from it as well. So I know you're big on learning and that lifelong journey. So what's your take on that, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's so important to be a lifelong learner because things are always changing, but now they're changing exponentially fast. Like we've never seen.
Mm,
Like AI is like, it's mind-boggling to me. It's amazing, but it
yeah,
just came out of nowhere. And so we've always got to be keeping our skills sharp. And even though I'm not actively trying to build anything or even look for more clients or any of that anymore, it's great when they show up on my doorstep, but I don't go looking for it that much. I just think it's important just being in that to keep your brain sharp and keep up with things. And I find also that people that tend to go, and for example, I go to a lot of seminars and conferences. And number one, it's a great networking opportunity because I love to meet other people. And sometimes they're doing really cool things that inspire me.
mm,
Sometimes I
yeah,
inspire them. But I just find that people, when they're learning and they're growing, they tend to be happier and they tend to have more of a purpose in life and they tend to be more fulfilled. And the people who are just like I remember back early in my career, I was a realtor and I would almost never go into my office. And the people that were there, that they go to their office all day long and they sit there and read the newspaper. They thought by sitting in the office, they called that working. And
productive. Yeah,
for me, I was going to other seminars and even though I had met the minimum requirements to be a realtor, I kept wanting to learn more and more and more. That's what eventually led me down the path that I'm on today. But a lot
mm,
of people just want to do the bare bones minimum. They don't want to do anything extra. And the people that go the extra mile are the people that get to a whole different level. And I think a lot of it comes down just from being in that learning environment and just being around other people that are growth minded as well. And a lot of times when we see other people that are doing, they keep leveling up, leveling up, leveling up. Well, it forces us to want to level up too. And so I will never stop learning, growing. I think it's just so important. And when
yes.
people are just
And
doing the bare bones minimum, it's like it makes me sad because they're missing out on just so much growth.
well, and like you said before as well, it's not just about the money, the bank account, it's the happiness account. It's
Yeah.
there's an element of monetary value that you need to enable a lifestyle that you want. And it's different for everyone. So deciding what that is, but then don't let that overtake your happiness. And I've heard you before mention a number of times around make sure you have a good happiness bank account as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. The thing is that we obviously can all look at our bank account. We tend to measure our success through what's in there. And of course, a lot
Mm,
of us are not happy with what's in there. So we're never really happy. And I can tell you that even if you had $1 million sitting in your bank account or 5 million or whatever seems like a large amount for you right now, having that in your bank account is not what's going to make you happy. Like I said, I used to be a workaholic and I had plenty of money. Money was not the problem, but I didn't have any time for it. Even though I had lots of money in the bank account, couldn't go to my daughter's soccer practices. I had to keep going and keep everything on track. So if we were able to measure, we had an account that measured happiness, we had an account that measured fulfillment, and we had a balance between those three accounts where all of them are at a really nice level, that's when you get to really enjoy life. That's where the freedom
yes.
is built. And having one thing way out of proportion, having a really big bank account and everything else falling apart around you, which was me at one point, it doesn't make you feel very happy or fulfilled. It makes you feel miserable. When you're broke, and like when I was a starving university student and I thought, okay, well, if I just get the money, I'm going to be happy. If I can just get that money, at least I had
Yeah.
something to look forward to. You'd wake up and you'd have something to look forward to. Okay, I'm going to work hard today. I'm going to figure out how to build this. I'm going to get over this hurdle. But when you've done everything that everybody told you were supposed to do, and you've got the big house and you got the fancy car, and everybody's looking up to you and they think you're, God, and you must be so
Made
happy.
it.
Your
Yeah.
life is so good. And then you go home and you feel like you want to cry and you feel depressed. That's not good because you don't have anything that lights you up anymore. And I know so many people in that boat, and I used to be in that boat myself. And so I think it's just super important that instead of chasing the money, let's get the money on autopilot. Let's get it so it comes in effortlessly. So you don't have to worry about it. It keeps replenishing itself, or you don't have to worry about scarcity where it's going to disappear one day. Once
Mm,
you have that, then what are you going to focus on? If you don't have to focus on the money anymore, you're going to focus on what's really important to you. And to me, that's spending more time with your family. Maybe it's giving back on a larger scale. That's where we get our happiness and fulfillment from. It's not having more money in the bank account. At some point, If you have 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, it's going to make no difference to your lifestyle unless you have some really bad habit. I hope you never
Right.
have that.
Yeah.
But other than that, you only need so much money to survive, no matter how crazy a lifestyle you want to lead. So, but I find the most successful people with the biggest bank accounts, they want to give back more. They don't want to go party more. They don't. I have a
Mm.
friend who's literally a billionaire, and you would, if you saw his car, you would think he was broke, but he gives back on a very large scale. That's what gives him his happiness. So anyway, it's too bad that we don't have a way that we can measure that as
I
easily as we
know
can in the
exactly, and I boil it down because it's. I mean, I know some people might say, "Well, it's all very well for you, Mike, because you've got the money and now you can enjoy the lifestyle." But the point is sure that is what the situation is, but strive for something better. Just have a focus around, okay, how could I create that, or how could I do it, and then achieve those happiness wins along the way. So if you do find you're working a bit too much, or maybe too much focus on the bank account, is then just take a step back every now and again. It could be only 5-10 minutes a day minimum, but just start to get in the habits of that. I call them happiness activities, or being present and
Mhm.
being in the moment. And then do that more and more, because then new opportunities will start to open up.
Absolutely true. And,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. I have a lot of entrepreneurs, ask me, hey, I'm stuck in my business. What I feel overwhelmed. What do I do to get over this overwhelm? And I tell them, you know what, go to Costa Rica and go walk through the rainforest for a couple hours.
Mm,
And you're going to get so much clarity from just getting back to nature and away from the boardroom and away from your office. And, a lot of my best ideas have come when I wasn't trying to think about business. You ever notice when
yeah.
you're in the shower, all of a sudden you get this great thing that pops in your head? At my age, I don't remember it by the
The
time I'm
aha.
hour,
Yeah.
but you always have the best clarity when you're not even trying to focus on things. And that's been my experience. And so, yeah, just taking time to work on yourself, taking time, also having something bigger than yourself to focus on. So for me, for example, I love animals. I think I told you a story like around 10 years ago, I was in a wheelchair because I used to get gout all the time. And for me,
Mm,
too much meat. Anyways, I initially said, I'm going to give up eating meat 6 days a week, but Wednesdays, because Wednesdays, one of my favorite pubs had wing night. That used to be my favorite food. On Wednesdays, that's gonna be my cheat day. And then I decided if I give myself one cheat day, Wednesday, then guess what? I'm gonna go out with my friends on Friday, and that's gonna become a cheat day. And Saturday's gonna become
yeah.
and next thing you know, you're back to your old habits again. So instead, I just called myself, hey, I'm from now on, I'm a very strict vegetarian and even at some points vegan, but I'm doing it not for me, just because I want to get out of a wheelchair. I'm doing it for the animals. And once I had it, and I'm not trying to preach, by the way, but I'm just saying when you have
It's a
something,
purpose.
yeah, when you have something bigger than yourself that you're
Yeah.
doing something for, you're not going to cheat. So when I'm 90 and maybe I'm not traveling full time anymore, I don't care if I'm in a wheelchair because I'm not leaving my place. If I'm doing it for me, it'd be very easy to go back to my old habits, live in pain the rest of my life. And if I'm doing it for the animals, I'm never going to cheat on the animals. So have
Yeah.
something bigger than yourself. Have something you're giving back to, and don't say, hey, well, when I become a millionaire, I'm going to give to this cause. Give what you can now. I find whenever you give, it comes back, tenfold, 100-fold, and don't do it with that expectation. But I find when you
Mm,
start good things and you're helping more people, whatever it is, that thing that's bigger than you're going to get rewarded. Don't do it for the reward. Just trust me that the reward will come. And
yeah.
life just gets better and better. And I just find I like to use the term, the universe. You can use God, whatever it is for you is fine. I find that the universe just puts the right opportunities, right people on your path when you're doing good things, and things just fall into place. And we get so
Yes.
hung up on, we have to have the whole game plan right from the get-go. We have to have the blueprint. We have to have this, we have to have that. Just get started and start moving forward and take little steps, and also do things for causes bigger than yourself. It doesn't have to be animals, although I like that one, but it could be whatever it is that lights you up, whatever cause lights you up. But start doing things for something bigger than yourself and just watch how your life shifts.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I love this conversation because what I've built over the years as well is around living with intent and purpose, but then being open to recognizing opportunities. Don't being IT and technology, I was very planful, very analytical. So if it didn't follow the plan, I was like, this isn't right. Why isn't it not following the
Right.
plan? So now it's a case of, over the last decade or so, it's now a case of, okay, here's the plan. Here's something that you knew that's coming along. So as long as you're living with intent and achieving the plan overall, hey, something else might come in that's slightly different. And it's just being open to that, I know it's easy to say be flexible, but when you're stuck in a mindset, it is more tough to do
Right.
that. So that's what I've learned over the years as well. But yeah, loving this conversation, Mike. I know we could go on for a long time because I always enjoy chatting with you about this topic, and it's very meaningful to me as well. So
Yeah, I love it.
So in terms of if people want to get hold of you, where can they find you?
Well, one, if you want that ebook, you can go to mikewolfmastery.com, or you can email me info@mikewolfmastery.com, and I'd be happy to answer if you have any questions, if you're stuck with something, if you need clarity. I always love to help. So reach out anytime.
Awesome. Perfect. And any last words you wanted to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I just think that, I don't think we're all put on this planet with gifts and a purpose. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. And I don't think any of us were put on this planet to be workhorses and to be workaholics. I don't think that was really the plan for us. So figure out a way to protect your time. Don't give up family time in the pursuit of money. Once you get money, get that money working hard for you so you don't have to
Yes.
focus on it all day long.
Yes, exactly. I love it. Get your money working for you as well. It's not, the having the money is not the goal. It's having that money work for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Love it. Well, great talking to you, Mark. Yeah. Looking forward to our next chat. I do want to do this again and deep dive into this, but yeah, thanks very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. We'll chat soon.
Thanks for listening to the Let's Talk About It podcast, brought to you by WeDeliverYourVision.com, the go-to place for delivering your vision and getting traction fast.